breaking news this morning. After 43 days, the longest shutdown in U.S. history, finally over. President Trump signing the bill to reopen the government late last night after it was passed by the House. But as Washington turns a page on that battle, new fallout is looming over the White House from the newly released trove of documents in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Among the files, multiple emails from Epstein that specifically mention Donald Trump's name. The White House is now ramping up pressure on House Republicans after 4 of them, including 3 women, signed a discharge petition to force a vote on fully releasing the Justice Department's files on Epstein. That vote now set to happen next week. One of Epstein's survivors telling CNN she's grateful to that handful of Republicans and urged them to stand firm.
I think that there's just such a broader message that for those women, particularly Marjorie Taylor Greene, Boebert, and Mace, I think they are really standing up for women everywhere, and they are saying they're throwing down the gauntlet of what is acceptable in society.
And new this morning, new CNN exclusive reporting on Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime associate and now convicted sex trafficker, and her life behind bars. Sources telling CNN she now gets special privileges, including private use of the chaplain's office for visitors, the warden personally helping her send emails, and yes, even unlimited toilet paper. CNN's Elena Treen is at the White House with the very latest on this morning. What are you learning?
Yeah, look, Sarah, yesterday was a dizzying day of political intrigue, and it really cast a dark cloud over Republican hopes of claiming victory over the government shutdown and passing that bill to reopen the government. Now, the president, of course, signed that bill last night, but it finished off a day that brought new urgency to this issue that he has tried repeatedly, as well as has his team, to try and shrug off, but he just can't shake it. It's an issue that keeps coming back and bringing new information every time it does. And of course, there was those new emails from Jeffrey Epstein's private estate over the last 15 years that mentioned the president by name. And ever since then, ever since those were released, the White House has really been in damage control mode. And my colleagues and I broke yesterday that part of that was to bring Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, one of the people who ultimately did join that petition, bringing her to the White House, and not just coming to the White House, but bringing her to the Situation Room, the room where presidents go over war plans, to try and urge her not to sign her name. Now, the White House has argued that that was a sign of transparency. Listen to how Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, put it.
Doesn't that show the level of transparency when we are willing to sit down with members of Congress and address their concerns? That's a defining factor of transparency. Having discussions with members of Congress about various issues, and I'm not going to detail conversations that took place in the Situation Room, in the press briefing room.
Now, look, despite that meeting and also the president's efforts to try and get the Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace on the phone as well, it was an unsuccessful effort. Both of them, including and then in addition to Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, all ultimately signed it. Now this signature has 218 votes, and the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, said that they will get a vote on that next week. And to be clear, I want to be clear in all of this, that these new emails do not appear to pose any new legal implications for the president. The White House and the president have repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, and the president has not been charged with any crimes as it relates to Epstein. But all of this just continues to bring new urgency to that question of why isn't the president releasing these, particularly after he and his supporters for years had argued that the files must be made public. And really, why isn't he willing to release these and get justice for these victims who have been trafficked and abused by Epstein? And so the question continues is going to be, how does this White House continue to deal with this, particularly as we know that this vote is going to happen next week to try and force the Justice Department to release the materials they have. And one of the questions I know that has really been something that I think this White House is struggling with, Sarah, is that, most seriously, it raises the question of, did the president know more than what he has said publicly? All of that they're dealing with today.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that people want answered. Elena Treen, thank you so much for your reporting. John?
All right, let's get right to CNN political analyst, Washington Bureau Chief for the Boston Globe, Jackie Kucinich. Jackie, what does it tell you that the White House and the president seem to be working so hard to keep more information from coming out?
I mean, the assertion that it's transparent to say that Boebert was there when they're trying to get her to take her name off of something that would reveal more documents when it comes to the Epstein case, I think tells you everything you need to know. But what we don't know, as Elena pointed out there, is why they're trying to keep the rest of these files a secret. It's hard to believe this actually started in February when Attorney General Pam Bondi distributed that binder to conservative influencers that turned out to be a lot of things that were already released and were heavily redacted. And this has just been a self-inflicted wound over and over and over again. And now here we are in November, still talking about something that the president promised during his last campaign, but also that started to unspool at the very beginning of his second term.
And one other thing on this, Jackie, as you well know, I mean, what happens if and when the House does vote next week to release more of the files? Does that mean automatically they become public the next day?
No, it doesn't. It means they go to the Senate, and the president has to actually sign this at the end of the day. And it's hard to believe that this House, in particular, and this Congress, would have the necessary votes to override a presidential veto. So perhaps this is so they don't have, House Republicans don't have to be on the record voting to release these files. It's an excellent question, but the vote is going to happen. I mean, that is going to happen, as Mike Johnson said, potentially next week. But yes, then for all intents and purposes, it kind of ends there unless a lot of factors change.
Again, some of the big questions are why the insistence on not releasing more and how hard they're working. A situation remaining very, very unusual. Jackie Kucinich, great to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
Joining us now is CNN senior legal analyst Elie Honig. All right, I want to talk about this one email that you and a lot of us looked at. It seemed like the most significant one. It's from 2011, where Epstein is writing to Ghislaine Maxwell saying, and here's what he says: "I want you to realize that dog that hasn't barked is Trump." The victim's name there is redacted, but he says, she spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. What stands out to you about what are the things that this particular email tells you?
So lots of questions raised by these emails, not a lot of answers, but really important questions. The two fundamental questions I think that are raised is what exactly was the nature of Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein back then? And what exactly did Donald Trump know about Jeffrey Epstein's criminality back then? Now, this email I think is the most important one. Let's start with the simplest part. Name of victim, spent hours at my house with him, with Trump. Okay. That is contradictory to much of what we've heard from, for example, Ghislaine Maxwell, who denied Donald Trump was ever at the house. For hours, by the way, at the house. So what is Donald Trump doing at the house? Was he in fact there? What is he doing there for hours? What is he doing with the victim for hours? I think those are really important questions. The second part of this email is the whole dog that hasn't barked part of it. Now, that actually goes back to a Sherlock Holmes story about a robbery where a guard dog doesn't bark, and the inference is, well, the dog must have known the robbers. And this sounds like they're speculating about, is Donald Trump speaking to the police? Is he providing information because his name hasn't been mentioned, and nor has he said anything publicly? So it's important to think about the timing, Sarah, as you said. This is 2011. This is after Jeffrey Epstein has pled guilty in Florida to his sweetheart deal, before Donald Trump's running for president, of course, but he's in the public eye. So I think this raises important questions about the relationship between Trump and Epstein and what Trump knew back then.
Is there any sense here? I mean, this is happening at a time when, you mentioned all those things, that there was, why would they lie, I guess, when you're looking at this?
Yeah, on the one hand, you have two convicted criminals communicating here, in Epstein and Maxwell, two people with no credibility. On the other hand, they're communicating with each other back in 2011, what they believe is private, through email. And so it does have the hallmark of credibility. I'll just say this. If this was a trial of some other co-conspirator, this type of email would be admissible in court, because the theory is when you have two co-conspirators communicating like this, they wouldn't have a reason to lie to each other.
The president is facing no legal ramifications from any of this. But the president is responding to all this. He's called it a hoax. He went on Truth Social and went after Republicans. He called a meeting some of his cabinet members. I mean, what do his actions and words tell you they don't seem to match.
Well, you know, some of the things in these emails actually corroborate and support things that Donald Trump has said in his own defense over the years. But yes, the whole "there's nothing to see here" approach is very much inconsistent with the idea of now let's have a situation room meeting with White House officials, the AG, the deputy AG, and the FBI director. So the messaging here is quite contradictory, and the whole, we're calm about this is belied, I think, by the actual actions we've been seeing.
Ellie Honig, it's always a pleasure to have you here in person. Good to see you.
Good to see you.